طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm going to ask everyone over here to move in. You guys seem too far apart today. So, there's very few times that I'm extremely grateful for my phone. Most of the times I wish there was a way to turn it off completely and, never turn on again because of how often it goes off. But this morning when I woke up, I had one of the most beautiful surprises, subhanAllah. One of my teachers in Medina had sent me a WhatsApp message. And even though, that it happens, on and off on Eid greetings and so on and so forth, very rarely is it a gem that, makes me go, wow, subhanAllah. And today was one of those days. And I want to share the story that he shared with me today. So I'll read parts of it in Arabic and I'll translate it into English, inshallah. So ساق ابن بطال بسنده إلى يحيى بن يحيى الليثي تلميذ مالك قال أول ما حدثني مالك بن أنس حين أتيته طالبا لما ألحمني الله إليه في أول يوم جلست إليه قال لي اسمك قلت له أكرمك الله يحيى وكنت أحدث أصحابي سنا. So Ibn Battal, one of the famous explainers of hadith, he has a story of a man by the name of Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. What's significant about Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi is that he is one of the individuals that narrates the Muwatta of Imam Malik. As you know, each major Imam of Hadith, he had students that would narrate the books from them, right? So one of the most famous versions of the Muwatta of Imam Malik is by Yahya ibn Yahya al-Laythi. So he says, when I first came to study with Imam Malik, he asked me what my name was. And I told him my name is Yahya ibn Yahya, and I was from the most youngest of people that were sitting with Imam Malik at that time. فقال لي يا يحيى الله عليك بالجد في هذا الأمر وسأحدثك في ذلك بحديث يرغبك فيه ويزهدك في غيره. So he says, oh Yahya, by Allah, it is upon you to be very diligent and enthusiastic in seeking knowledge. I shall tell you a story that will make you more enthusiastic in seeking knowledge and will make you less enthusiastic about everything else. Then he says, قال قدم المدينة غلام من أهل الشام بحداثة سنك فكان معنا يجتهد ويطلب حتى نزل به الموت فلقد رأيت على جنازته شيئا لم أرى مثل على أحد من أهل بلدنا لا طالب ولا عالم فرأيت جميع علماء يزدحمون على نعشه. So he says that there was a young man that came to Medina from the people of Sham, and he was approximately your age, and he was with us and he used to seek knowledge all the way until he passed away. And I saw in his janazah something that I have not seen in the janazah of any individual, no one before him, no one after him, no student nor any scholar. I saw all of the scholars attend this person's janazah. And then he goes on to mention the famous scholars of that time, Yahya ibn Sa'id, Ibn Shihab, Zuhri, and other than them. And he mentions quite a load of scholars. I'm going to skip that part. Then what ends up happening is, he says that 3 days after the janazah was prayed, there was a righteous man who saw this young boy in a dream. He saw this young boy in a dream. So let me just get to that part. قال مالك فلما كان اليوم الثالث من يوم دفنه رآه رجل من خيار أهل بلدنا في أحسن صورة غلام أمرد وعليه بياض متعمم بعمامة خضراء وتحته فرس أشهب نازل من السماء. So this righteous man, he saw this young boy coming down from the sky in the most beautiful of appearances, and he had a green turban on him, and he was coming down on a horse, so sort of like a unicorn. And the young man, he tells this man who saw him in a dream that this is all from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me due to seeking knowledge. فَقَالَ لَهُ الرَّجُلُ وَمَا الَّذِي بَلَّغَكَ إِلَيْهِ. And what is it specifically that got you to this high rank? فَقَالَ أعطاني الله بكل باب تعلمته من العلم درجة في الجنة فلم تبلغ بي الدرجات إلى درجة أهل العلم. He says that for every chapter that I studied, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised my rank in paradise. And I did not reach, I did not continue ascending until I reached the ranks of the people of knowledge. فقال الله تعالى زيدوا ورثة الأنبياء فقد سمنت على نفسي أنه من مات وهو عالم سنتي أو سنة أنبياء أو طالب ذلك أن أجمعهم في درجة واحدة. So he says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said that those that are the inheritors of the prophets, meaning the students of knowledge and the scholars, continue to raise their ranks for a year or even 2 years until all of them are of one level. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reached them to the level, 2 levels below the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He says that there was 2 ranks of people on top of me. The Sahaba of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Anbiya above me, and at the head of them was a Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. درجة هو في جالس وحوله النبيون كلهم ودرجة فيها جميع أصحابه وجميع أصحاب النبيين الذين تبعوهم ودرجة من بعدهم فيها جميع أهل العلم وطلبة فسيرني الله استوطعتهم فقالوا لي مرحبا مرحبا سوى ما لي عند الله من المزيد. So when he reached this level, he says that all of those people, the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, at the head of them are Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, all of the companions and all the followers of all of the prophets and all of the people of knowledge, they said marhaban marhaban, they said welcome to you, welcome to you. And there was nothing more that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have given to me at that time. فَقَالَ لَهُ الرَّجُلُ وَمَالِكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الْمَزِيدِ وَمَالِكَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ مِنَ الْمَزِيدِ. So this man, he said, and did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala eventually give you anything more than that? He goes on to say, وعدني أن يحشر النبيين كلهم كما رأيتهم في زمرة واحدة فيقول يا معشر العلماء هذه جنتي فقد أبحتها لكم وهذا رضواني فقد رضيت عنكم فلا تدخلوا الجنة حتى تتمنوا وتشفعوا فأعطيكم ما شئتم وأشفعكم في من استشفعتم له ليرى عبادك كرامتكم علي ومنزلتكم عندي. And this is like the most beautiful part of it. He says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made him a promise that all of the prophets will be gathered together like I saw over there, and all of the students of knowledge will be gathered with them, and all the people of knowledge will be gathered with them. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, O group of scholars, this is my paradise that I have prepared just for you. This is my pleasure that I am pleased to present to you. And you will not enter Jannah except that you will have each and every single thing that you desire. And you will be able to intercede for anyone that you want to intercede for. And you will ask and I will give you. And all the people that you intercede for will be interceded for. So that my slaves can see the generosity and nobility that I have placed with you, and the great rank and station that you have with me. When that man who's narrating the dream now, who saw the dream, he says, when the morning came, I narrated to the people of knowledge, and the story spread all across Medina. Then he goes on to say, قال مالك كان المدينة أقوم بدأوا معنا في طلب هذا الأمر ثم كفوا عنه حتى سمعوا هذا الحديث فلقد رجعوا إليه وأخذوا بالجزم وهم اليوم من علماء بلدنا الله الله يا يحيى جدا في هذا الأمر. So Malik, he goes on to say that Medina had the best of the people that used to seek knowledge at that time. But gradually over time, enthusiasm, it dies down. Until this incident happened, and then this incident spread. And once the people started to hear this incident, that is when they went back to seeking knowledge, becoming very enthusiastic and dedicated to it. And these people are now the scholars of our land today. So by Allah, O Yahya, be diligent in the seeking of knowledge, be diligent in the seeking of knowledge. So that was the message I woke up to this morning, just before praying Fajr, subhanAllah. And my whole day has been like absolutely amazing, starting off on such a positive note. Now I know that took up a lot of time, but I thought that since this is our last class on the Fiqh of Taharah, and we have 5 chapters to cover, and as the story mentioned that, with each chapter that he studied, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises his ranks. We hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises our ranks at least 5-fold through what we study today. Allahumma ameen. With that being said, what is left for today are the following 5 chapters. The chapter of wudu, the chapter of the nullifiers of wudu, the chapter of ghusl, the chapter of tayammum, and the chapter of wiping over the socks. Those are the 5 things we're going to be covering. Now, it's going to be very quick, it's going to be fast-paced. You guys need to follow pace. You guys can't fall asleep, you can't wander off. I need your attention for 45 minutes, that's it. So imagine these are like the most important 45 minutes of your life. That's the dedication you're giving to me today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Starting off with the chapter of wudu. All of this chapter is based upon one verse in the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse number 6, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in this verse, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا إذا قمتم من الصلاة فاغسلوا وجوهكم وأيديكم إلى المرافق فامسحوا برؤوسكم وأرجلكم إلى الكعبين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says in this verse, O you who believe, when you intend to offer salah, wash your faces and your hands up to your elbows, rub your heads and wash your feet up to the ankles. If you are in a state of janaba, purify yourselves, but if you are ill or on a journey, or any of you comes answering the call of nature, or if you have been in contact with women and you find no water, then perform tayammum with clean earth and rub therewith your faces and hands. Allah does not want to place you in any difficulty, but He wants to purify you and complete His favor upon you, so that you may be grateful. So this is where the command of wudu, tayammum and ghusl comes from. All this comes from this. Likewise, the concept of nullifiers of wudu all comes from this verse over here. Verse number 6 in Surah Al-Ma'idah. Verse number 6 in Surah Al-Ma'idah. So now, let us start off with what are the most integral components of the wudu itself. What are the most integral components of the wudu itself? And they are 6. Meaning that if you do not have these 6 things, you will not have wudu. What it also means is that if you do more than this, then alhamdulillah, at least your wudu is intact. At least your wudu is intact, even if you do more than this, or you have been doing more than this. So the 6 things that are from the arkan of wudu, meaning that without these 6 things, your wudu is not valid. Number 1, washing the face at least once. Washing the face at least once. We're going to come to discuss, does rinsing the mouth and the nose, is it included in the washing of the face, or is it something that is separate? So we leave that for a separate discussion, but just understand, washing the face once, this is the first integral of wudu. Second integral of wudu, washing from the tips of the fingers all the way till the elbows at least once, both sides. That is the second integral of wudu. Third integral of wudu, wiping the head including the ears. Wiping the head including the ears. We'll discuss in the ikhtilaf how much of the head needs to be covered. Is it 3 hair, a third of the head, the majority of the head, or all of the head? Right? We'll come to the ikhtilaf on that. But wiping the head is the third one. Number 4, washing the feet up to the ankles at least once. Washing the feet up to the ankles at least once. Now those are the 4 that summarizes wudu. What do you think is going to be next? What are the last 2 integrals going to be? We've talked about feet. What's going to come after feet? Nope. Ridwan.
In the right order?
Fantastic. Number 1 is it has to be in this order, right? So you can't wash your feet before you wash your head. You can't wash your face at the end. It has to be everything in its proper order. What's the second condition that's left over? I want to give someone else a chance. Sajjad.
You can't have too much time going between the washing the hands and the face, for example.
Fantastic. And how do we calculate that time?
So it depends on when the hands, before it dries.
Before it dries. Fantastic. So those are the 2 integrals that are left over. Let me repeat them. Number 1 is that it has to be done in its proper order, right? So we had the face, we had from the beginning of the arms all the way till the elbows. Then we had the head and the ears, and then we had the feet. That is the order that it needs to be done in, right? Then the last one is that each subsequent part needs to be done before the water on the previous part dries off. So for example, you just wash your face, and as soon as you're done washing your face, your phone rings. You start having a conversation, everything's good, and then you're like, hey, I was in the middle of making wudu. Do I have to start over again, or can I continue from where I left off from? The way you decide that is, if there's water still left on your face, you can see the drops of water, you can feel the moisture on your face, then you can continue making your wudu. However, if you touch your face, there's no water left over, it's completely dry, then that means you need to start over, all over again. Okay? So these are the 6 integrals of wudu. If these 6 integrals are not there, you have no wudu. Your wudu is not valid. Your wudu is not valid. So those are the integrals. Now let's move on to the things that are recommended to do. Things that are recommended to do. Number 5 is the order. So you have to follow the order. So now what are the things that are recommended to do? Number 1 is the issue of the intention. Why is this considered something that is recommended to do? We'll mention here why. The wudu is what we call a shart of the wudu and not a rukn of the wudu. How do you differentiate between what is a shart and what is a rukn? A shart is something that is outside of the actual act itself, yet without it, it would not be valid. So for salah, wudu is a shart for salah. Okay? Similarly over here, intention is not within the arkan, it's not within the physical actions of the wudu itself, but it is something that is outside of the wudu itself. So that's why it is outside the scope of the arkan. It is considered from the shurut. And the intention is the first thing that needs to take place. Is it something that is mandatory or something that is not? This is the first difference of opinion. Malik, Ahmad and Shafi'i said that the intention is compulsory. It has to be there before making wudu. Imam Abu Hanifa, he said that the intention is not mandatory. Why is the difference of opinion there? Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he saw the act of wudu not as an act of worship, but rather as an act of means. So for example, you're coming to the masjid, you decide to get into the car. Is your ride in the car an act of ibadah within of itself? No. According to him, it's just a means to get there. Similarly, the wudu is not an act of ibadah within of itself, but it is a means to the salah. And that is why he said that if a person just happens to wash his hands, what happens to wash his face, happens to wash his arms, happens to wash his head, and happens to wash his feet, without making the intention of wudu, then his wudu would still be valid. Whereas the majority, they said no, that specific intention needs to be there. Where you are intending to do wudu to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Where you're intending to do wudu in order to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Are we clear on that?
Yes.
So who can explain Imam Abu Hanifa's position to me? Why did he not consider the intention important for wudu?
Because it was considered a means for him and not a need. Basically, not a need. It's not part of the worship.
So it's not an act of worship within of itself. Fantastic.
It acts as a medium towards.
Fantastic. Now thinking off the top of your head, what would be the proof of the majority against this? What would the proof of the majority be?
In the ayah,
In the ayah itself?
where Allah says if you intend to perform salah, then perform wudu.
Okay, so if one doesn't intend to perform salah, he can't perform wudu? There's something more general. You've like trapped yourself there, but you're on the right track though. The hadith of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anh, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, that indeed actions are by intentions. Actions are by intentions. So now we move on to the second issue of difference of opinion, the issue of washing one's mouth and while washing the nose. Is it a part of cleansing the face or is it not? So opinion number one is the majority of scholars from Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i. Okay, opinion number one, they said it is not a part of it. It is just sunnah to do so. It is just sunnah to do so, meaning it is not mandatory to rinse the mouth and rinse the nose. They said that if you go back to the ayah of wudu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala simply mentions the washing of the face and does not mention the nose and the mouth. Opinion number two, opinion of Imam Ahmad and the Zahiriyah. Opinion of Imam Ahmad and the Zahiriyah. They said it is wajib to rinse one's mouth and to rinse one's nose. Their proof. Number one, that the Prophet ﷺ himself commanded the people to wash their mouths and rinse the nose. And they said when the Prophet ﷺ commands something, even though this is something that's differed over, in acts of ibadah, then that al-amr yaqtadi al-wujub, that the commandment necessitates obligation. The commandment necessitates obligation. Number two, they said that any version of the wudu that we have seen, then we have only seen the washing of the mouth and the nose being included in it. None of the versions of wudu have been excluded from washing the mouth and rinsing the nose. Therefore, it is an integral of washing the face. It is integral of washing the face. Conclusion, it is better to do so. It is better to do so. So when you have an opportunity, you have more than enough water, go ahead and rinse your mouth and rinse your nose. It is better to do so. Feels like I skipped something over here. What did I skip over here? Okay. So the next thing that we go into after this, and this should have been actually before this, is the issue of washing the hands before performing wudu. So you know when you start off making wudu, it is encouraged to wash your hands before you actually start making wudu. It is encouraged to wash your hands before you start making wudu. And this is not an integral part of the wudu itself. The integral part of the wudu comes when you're washing up to your elbows. That is when the hands need to be washed as well. So I skipped that part over there as well. Then the part that I skipped as well was the issue of the basmala. Is your wudu still valid without the basmala? That's something we're coming up to. That's something we're coming up to. I just want to go into the proper order. So now we have the opinions of washing the mouth and rinsing the nose, and we said it is better to do so. It is better to do so. Now, the next thing that's recommended to do so is that when you wash the face, including the mouth and including the nose, you do it 3 times. It is recommended to do so. An individual that has a beard should do this, like get the hands wet and rinse it through his beard. This is what is required for you to do in washing your face. If you do not have a beard, then you actually have to wash the skin itself. So you would take your hand and wash the skin underneath the chin over here. All the skin underneath the chin, where the hair actually grows, that part needs to be washed. However, if there's hair over there, then just wiping it thoroughly with your fingers is sufficient. And that should be done 3 times. The next part is the washing of the hands all the way till the elbows, and this is done 3 times as well. Can a person go beyond the elbows in doing so? Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrates that he used to go past the elbows. He used to go past the elbows in making wudu. And this shows that it is permissible to do so. That Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he wouldn't do this unless it was something that was permissible to do. Now what was the wisdom behind Abu Hurairah doing this? Who can tell me? Go ahead.
He used to wear gold, so he was thought that if I do wudu then the fire won't touch it. He
No.
just put the gold armbands on, right? And he's like, I want to make the wudu like so that the fire won't touch it.
Allahu A'lam. This is not the narration that I came across. Go ahead.
Is it based on the hadith that says in the day of judgment, like all the parts will be that will shine?
Will shine, exactly. So that was the version that I had read. That he says that I narrated from the Prophet ﷺ that every part of the body that has been used for wudu will shine on that day. And that is why he used to exaggerate in the body parts that he used to wash. That he would go past the elbows and he would even go past the ankles in washing in wudu, just so that those parts would shine on the last day. That those parts would shine on the last day. Now when it comes to the issue of washing the feet, actually, no, that part is coming. So now we get to the part of wiping of the head. Wiping of the head. How much of the head actually needs to be washed in order for the wudu to be complete? You have 4 opinions on this issue. Opinion number 1 is opinion of Imam Malik, one of the narrations from Imam Ahmad, which is that you must wipe the whole head. You must wipe the whole head. Opinion number 2 is that you must wipe at least a quarter of the head, and this was the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. A quarter of the head is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. Third opinion is that you wipe a third of the head, and this was the opinion of the Maliki madhab. This is the opinion of some of the scholars of the Maliki madhab. And opinion number 4 is that a person must wipe at least 3 strands of hair. At least 3 strands of hair, and if you do that, then your wudu will be considered valid. Difference of opinion, it lies going back to what is considered wiping of the head. When the Prophet ﷺ, wiped over his head when wearing a turban, he would just simply lift it and just wipe under the first couple of hairs. Does this suffice of wiping over the head? Likewise, when you are told that you have to, wash something, if you wash the majority of it, is it considered as having been cleansed? Or does all of it have to have cleansed? So those are the 2 sources of discrepancy. One is the linguistic meaning of fully cleansing, and then 2 is when the Prophet ﷺ performed wudu with his imamah, he only cleaned the first few hair that was in the front of the head. So now does that suffice in terms of wiping the whole head? Summary of conclusion, it is better to wipe the whole head. And if you can't wipe the whole head, at least make sure the majority of the head is cleaned. How do you differentiate between the whole head and the majority of the head? The whole head, you go all the way back like this. So all the way back like this once, and all the way back to the front. That is considered one wiping of the head. Now do we wipe our head 3 times? No, it is just once. So you just wipe the head once, like this, and all the way back to the front. Okay? That is considered one wipe, and that is all should be done. Now, if you just go back to the majority and you don't touch the last few hairs, or let's just say you're from certain parts of the world where you're extremely hairy, where your back hair goes into your neck hair, which goes into your head hair, and you're like, where does the hair end? Do we have to keep going all the way back? Then go back all the way till you start feeling like your vertebrae bone. Then that is the area of the head, right? So that is how you would differentiate it. Now, part of the cleaning of the head we mentioned is that you also clean the ears. How do you clean the ears? What you do is, after you're done wiping of the head like this, that's once, you take your index fingers, put it inside your ears, clean it like this, okay? Just like this. And then with your thumbs, you clean the outside of your ears. With the thumbs, you clean the outside of the ears. Can we all try that? Take your index fingers, put it inside, and now you've cleaned inside your ears. Now with your thumbs, do the outside. With your thumbs, do the outside. So the back of the ear, that's how you clean it with the thumbs. And that is done just once. That is done just once. Go ahead.
Can you just go like this twice, or does it have to be in that middle of your sentence?
The sunnah is that it should be done back and forth like this. However, if you cover all of your hair, even just going like this, then that would be sufficient. Then that would be sufficient. But it is better not to go against that.
One time's not enough?
One time is not enough. You should do it back and forth. Or at least if you're not going to do it back and forth, then do it twice like this. But back and forth is what is recommended to do so. Now we get to the issue of saying Bismillah. Now we get to the issue of saying Bismillah. Opinion number 1 is that your wudu is invalid if you do not say Bismillah. This was the opinion of Imam Ahmad. Opinion of Imam Ahmad, based upon the hadith, there is no wudu for the one that does not mention the name of Allah. There is no wudu for the one that does not mention the name of Allah. This hadith is narrated by Tirmidhi and Ahmad, and the hadith is weak. The hadith is weak. Opinion number 2, Malik, Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i, they said the Basmala, saying Bismillah, is recommended to do so and not mandatory. Recommended to do so and not mandatory. Their proof, the hadith is weak. Gotta share with me as well, man. I'm just kidding. Go ahead. They said the hadith, no, I'm good. Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much. This is going to be a prize that I can give out, inshallah. They said the hadith is weak. And number 2, the Basmala isn't mentioned in the ayah. The Basmala isn't mentioned in the ayah. Okay. Now, acts that are recommended in wudu. Acts that are recommended in wudu. So number 1, when you wake up in the morning, before you start making wudu, you wash it 3 times. Or if you're starting to make wudu afresh, you wash it 3 times. Number 2, it is recommended to use the miswak before and after wudu. So before you start the wudu and after you start the wudu. Number 3 is that you should always start off from the right hand side, washing the right hand side first. Number 4, the dua of after wudu. So that which has been narrated by the majority of scholars is just to say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. This is the opinion, the narration of the majority. Imam at-Tirmidhi's narration, after this, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawabin wa ja'alni min al-mutatahhirin. That, oh Allah, make me from those that are purified and those that repent to you. Can we say that extra version of the dua, even though there's a slight weakness to it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best that it is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Number 5, it is recommended to pray 2 rak'ahs after wudu. Who knows the story behind that? What is the story of praying 2 rak'ahs after wudu?
Story of Bilal.
What happened?
During the Surah al-Mi'raj, Rasulullah heard the footsteps of Bilal over there.
Yes.
He told him that after each time he does wudu, he prays 2 rak'ah.
Fantastic. So the Prophet ﷺ, he once actually saw Bilal radiallahu anhu in a dream in paradise. So he asked him, Ya Bilal, what is it that you do that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give you this station in paradise? And after contemplating and thinking, Bilal radiallahu anhu, he said that every time I make wudu, I pray 2 rak'ahs. Every time I make wudu, I pray 2 rak'ahs. Just to mention something here quickly. It is permissible to combine intentions for sunnah acts. So for example, you have to pray your sunnahs for fajr. You don't have to pray the sunnahs of making wudu. You don't have to pray the sunnahs of Tahiyatul Masjid. But let's just say you enter into the masjid, you make wudu. Can you combine all 3 of them into one salah? Can you combine the Tahiyatul Masjid, the wudu, and the sunnahs of fajr into one? The answer is yes. It is permissible to do so because they're not at the level of fard, and the actions which are less than the level of fard, they can be combined together. They can be combined together. Is it better to pray them individually? Yes, there's more reward to pray them individually. However, if you have a limited amount of time, then you will still get the reward of all 3 if you combine your intentions. Now, we get into the topic of the issue of the ankles and the feet. The ankles and the feet. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, woe to the ankles from the hellfire. Woe to the ankles from the hellfire. Not the ankles, the heels from the hellfire. And what that means is that when you wash your feet for wudu, you have to make sure that you wash your feet properly. That there was a man whom the Prophet ﷺ once saw praying, and he saw a spot of dryness on his heels. This man, the Prophet ﷺ told this man, go and repeat your wudu and repeat your prayer. Go repeat your wudu and repeat your prayer. So this shows us that even particularly when you live in the desert, your heels will start to crack and the water will not penetrate the skin very well. So you have to make an extra effort when you have feet to make sure that your heels are wet and covered. Likewise, between the toes, they need to be cleansed with as well. Now we move on to the factors that nullify wudu. So by consensus, there are 5 things that will nullify your wudu. Everything else will have ikhtilaf on it. The first thing that is agreed upon, urinating. Number 2, defecation. Number 3, passing wind. Number 4, prostatic excretion. That's funny, isn't it? Until it happens to you. Prostatic excretion, which is, either if you have a sickness or, or it's extremely cold, and sometimes just normally before or after urination, there's a fluid that will come out. In Arabic, we call this wadi. We discussed this last week. We said this is impure, and this will nullify one's purity as well. And then likewise, ejaculation, as any form of semen or sperm that comes out of the private parts, this will nullify one's wudu as well. These are the 5 things by consensus that nullify one's wudu. Now we get to the things with a difference of opinion that nullify one's wudu. Number 1, the issue of sleep. Does sleep nullify one's wudu or not? There are 4 opinions on this issue. Opinion number 1 is that sleep breaks your wudu whether you are sleeping sitting, standing, or lying down. So regardless of how you fall asleep, your wudu is nullified if you fall asleep, regardless of it's heavy sleep or light sleep. So you can imagine, it's Taraweeh, it's really late, and it's a really slow recitation. In salah you start falling asleep. According to this opinion, your salah would be nullified. This was the opinion of only one scholar that I know of, and that is Rabi'atul Ra'i, who was the teacher of Imam Malik. Opinion number 2, this is the opinion of Ibn Hazm and the Zahiriyah, that any form of sleep will not break your prayer. This is the opinion of the Zahiriyah. Their proof for this, logical and textual. Logical proof, they said that Allah's Messenger ﷺ never actually indicated that sleep was a nullifier of wudu. But what was indicated is that when a person falls asleep, they do not have control over their bodily functions, meaning that they could pass gas and so on and so forth, and they would not even recollect if they did so. So therefore, that is what breaks the wudu and not the actual sleep itself. That is the logical argument. The textual argument is the hadith found in Sahih Muslim, where the companions narrated that they were in the masjid of the Prophet ﷺ, waiting for the Prophet ﷺ coming to establish the salah of Isha. And they waited, and they waited, and they waited. And some of the companions, especially the women and the children, they started to fall asleep. The iqamah was given, and none of them went to re-perform their wudu. So they said, therefore, the sleep does not nullify one's wudu. Opinion number 3. If a person sleeps sitting down or sleeps while he is sitting firmly, then his wudu does not break. But if he sleeps laying down or on his side, then his wudu is broken. This was the opinion of Imam Shafi'i. And he used the same hadith as before, that the companions that were asleep sitting down, they weren't commanded to re-perform their wudu. Opinion number 4, the opinion of Malik and Ahmad. They differentiate between deep sleep and light sleep. Light sleep does not break one's wudu, but deep sleep does. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, Allah knows best, it seemed that he was of this opinion as well, that they differentiate between light sleep and deep sleep. Imam Abu Hanifa's madhab, they actually had a way to differentiate between light sleep and deep sleep. They said if you're holding something in your hand while you fall asleep, and you're able to keep it holding while you're knocked out, then this is considered light sleep. However, if that thing falls from your hands, then that is considered deep sleep. But we ourselves, I think we're relatively good judges. When you're completely zoned out, that you don't know what's happening around you anymore, that would be considered deep sleep. However, if you're still able to keep track of what's happening around you while you're asleep, then this is considered light sleep. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. The stronger opinion is opinion number 4, that you differentiate between light sleep and deep sleep. Next issue, does touching the opposite gender break one's wudu or not? Does touching the opposite gender break one's wudu or not? Opinion number 1 from the Shafi'i madhab, that if a man touches a wudu or a wudu touches a man, the wudu is broken even if this couple is married. Even if this couple is married. Based upon the linguistic, literal understanding of the verse of wudu, where touching a woman would nullify one's wudu. Opinion number 2 is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, that if they touch, it does not break at all. Regardless of married or non-married, regardless of how long they touched for or what happened, it would not break one's wudu. This is opinion number 2, the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa. Opinion number 3, the Hanbali madhab, the Maliki madhab, and the Zahiri madhab, that if you touch with desire, meaning that there's sexual desire behind this touching, then it would nullify one's wudu. However, if there's no sexual desire in touching the opposite gender, then it would not nullify one's wudu. It would not nullify one's wudu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Over here, it seems that the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa is strongest. The opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa is strongest. Because when you look at the text in of itself, it is the excretion of fluid from the private parts that would nullify the wudu, and not the matter of touching within of itself. Not a matter of touching within of itself. Which leads us to the next issue. How about touching of the private parts? Does that nullify one's wudu or not? Opinion number 1, Malik, Shafi'i and Ahmad, touching the private part breaks one's wudu. Opinion number 2, Imam Abu Hanifa, that it does not break one's wudu. And opinion number 3 is that you combine between both of these. You combine between both of these. That when the private part is touched with desire, it will nullify one's wudu. And when it is not touched with one's desire, then it does not nullify one's wudu. It does not nullify one's wudu. And this was mentioned by some of the scholars of hadith. It was mentioned by Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, and some of the great scholars as well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but the strongest opinion seems to be opinion number 3. Opinion number 3. And that's how you reconcile between all of the hadith about this chapter. So whoever touches his private parts, then he should perform wudu. This is in the context of touching it with desire. And then the Prophet ﷺ told another person that if you touched it, then it is just as if you're touching any other part of your body. Right? So that's how you can reconcile between all of these hadith, that if it is touched with desire, then it is repeated. If it's not touched with desire, then it is not repeated. Next issue. Making wudu after eating camel meat. Opinion number 1 is that you do not have to make wudu. This is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam al-Shafi'i. Opinion number 2 is that you do have to do so. Based upon the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, should I make wudu after eating camel meat? He said yes. Narrated in Sahih Muslim. The opposition argued that this hadith is mansukh, that it is abrogated, and that's where the difference of opinion lies from. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, but the opinion of the majority seems stronger over here, that you do not need to perform wudu after eating camel meat. You do not need to perform wudu after eating camel meat. Last issue from the nullifiers of wudu is laughing during prayer. Does laughing during prayer nullify your wudu or not? Opinion number 1, Imam Abu Hanifa said, it does nullify your prayer and nullifies your wudu. And he has a narration that is mursal to substantiate it, but the hadith is weak. It is not acceptable to use. And the majority said no, that laughing during prayer does not nullify one's wudu. Does not nullify one's wudu. Any questions on the nullifiers of wudu? Go ahead.
If your clothes come above your knees,
Sorry, can you?
if your clothes come above your knee,
Yes.
does it nullify wudu?
If your clothes become above your knee, no, it doesn't nullify your wudu. But that's actually a very good question. So growing up, one of the things that my parents always told me, that if you see yourself naked or you see someone else naked, your wudu is nullified. And there's no truth to this whatsoever. So if you're changing your clothes, you just came out of making ghusl, and you have to be standing in the front of your mirror, does it break your wudu? No, it doesn't break your wudu. There's no proof for that. And similarly over here, if the top of your legs become uncovered, it doesn't break your wudu.
So like if you're wearing like a three-quarter pants or something, and like if you're making wudu, and like if you're, and nowadays they're like sinks, right? And like if you're cleaning our feet, and if our stuff that is being exposed, then that doesn't break our wudu whatsoever?
That does not break your wudu whatsoever. It does not break your wudu whatsoever. Yeah.
can a shower, like full shower, soaping, everything, be replacement of wudu?
We're coming to that. That's come under the chapter of ghusl. Go ahead.
True, actually. So for just to clarify the ankle, so we have to clean up till the ankle.
Including encompassing of the ankle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the face, does it include this part as well?
So not the part that goes into the neck, but the part underneath the chin. The part underneath the chin over here, that would be part of the face. So they say generally, if you look at your jawbones, wherever your jawbone goes, that is the part that needs to be cleaned for the face. Okay, go ahead.
The laughing, like, doesn't matter how long it is. It's like,
So I mean, this was the madhab of Imam Abu Hanifa, and we said that the hadith that he used was weak. So now, if a person gets distracted in salah to such a degree, can you just pull this back up? Jazakumullah khairan.
sometimes you can get too much, and I don't know if that how your salah is.
What's smiling?
Oh, so okay, let's answer the laughing part first. So if you feel that you've lost your khushu in salah because of your laughing and you're unable to control your laughter, then yes, I would say in that situation your salah is broken, but not your wudu. We'll cover this in the fiqh of salah. Yes,
This was wudu.
this is wudu. We're not talking about salah right now. Okay? So in terms of the salah part, we'll get to that. But in terms of the wudu part, it doesn't nullify your wudu. And likewise, smiling will not nullify your wudu. You're encouraged to smile, inshallah.
No, I mean doing prayer.
Smiling during prayer, we'll cover that in the fiqh of salah. We'll cover that in the fiqh of salah. So now let's move on. Tfaddal akhi.
About touching holding a baby with
Holding a baby that urinate on your clothes or in the diaper, or what are we talking about? In your hand. So we discussed this 2 weeks ago. We said if it's a baby girl, then it does have to be cleaned. But if it's a baby boy and it hasn't started eating food yet, then it's pure. Anything beyond that, then you have to wash your hands, but it won't nullify your wudu. You just have to wash your hands. Yeah, so you just wash your hands, it doesn't nullify your wudu. Go ahead.
What about if we touch the private part of your kid?
Private part of it, as you're cleaning them, yeah, then it won't nullify your wudu. It won't nullify your wudu. So the key distinction, we mentioned this last week, if I'm not mistaken, is that when it comes to the issue of touching, the concept of desire always needs to be there. As long as the desire is not there, then it won't nullify one's wudu. It won't nullify one's wudu. Move on to the next issue. Is wudu a necessity to hold a mushaf? Is wudu a necessity to hold a mushaf? Two opinions on this issue. Majority of ulama, all four madhahib, they said you must be in a state of wudu to touch the mushaf. You must be in a state of wudu to touch the mushaf. Several proofs for this. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, none of you should touch the Quran except the one who is tahir. Hakim, Malik, and Nasai ibn Hibban narrated this hadith, authentic hadith. And then the verse in the Quran, لا يمسح إلا المطهرون, that none of you shall touch it except those that are clean. So that is the opinion of the majority. Opinion number two, which is the opinion of the scholars of hadith, Bukhari, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim, Ibn al-Jawzi, and some of the other Hanbali scholars, they said you need to be in a state of purity, but not in a state of wudu. Meaning that you can't be in a state of janaba, but even if you don't have wudu, then it is permissible to touch. So it is permissible to touch the Quran. It is permissible to touch the Quran. Conclusion over here is that if you're touching a physical mushaf, then it is better to be in a state of wudu. It is better to be in a state of wudu. That is just pure Arabic, no tafsir, just Arabic Quran. In that situation, yes, it is better to have wudu. However, if you're touching a book of tafsir, or you're reading the Quran on your phone, or reading the Quran on a tablet, or reading the Quran off a screen, you don't need wudu to do so. You don't need wudu to do so. Next issue, wudu for tawaf. Do you need wudu to make tawaf around the Kaaba? Anyone going for Hajj? Is anyone going for Hajj here? I know people are leaving today and tomorrow, inshallah, so I thought it would be a good issue to discuss. But regardless, if you're not even going for Hajj, we'll discuss this anyways. Opinion number one, Malik, Shafi, and Ahmad, it is obligatory to be in a state of wudu while making tawaf. The clearest proof of this, the Prophet ﷺ said, the tawaf is like the salah. The tawaf is like the salah. Opinion number two is that a person can do tawaf without having wudu. This is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. This is the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa. He used logical arguments for this, which we won't get into right now. Conclusion, it is better to have wudu while making tawaf. In fact, it seems the overwhelming majority of scholars held this opinion, and it is better to do so. It is better to do so. Now, when is it recommended to make wudu? When you're about to do any act of dhikr or remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, before you go to sleep, whenever your wudu is broken, If you're about to repeat an act of intercourse with your wife, between the two acts of intercourse, it is recommended to make wudu. And while you are making ghusl, these are the 5 times it is recommended to make wudu. It is recommended to make wudu. Now we get, actually, any questions on this? Fantastic. We got it. Tafadhal.
If someone read the Quran in the cell phone,
Yes.
to make wudu too?
No, he doesn't have to make wudu to do that. Oh yeah, no problem. Now we get to the issue of wiping over the socks. So let us start off with, what is there consensus on? There is consensus on the fact that you're allowed wiping over leather socks. This is a matter of consensus. No one has differed on this issue except for some of the Shia, except for the Khawarij. They are the ones that differed on this issue. The vast majority of ulama from Ahlul Sunnah, actually all the scholars from Ahlul Sunnah, they agree that over leather socks you can wipe over. The second thing that they agreed upon, that the traveler is allowed to wipe for 72 hours and the resident is allowed to wipe for 24 hours. This is the second point of agreement. The second point of agreement. Now, we get to the issue of, what is the issue of difference of opinions on? So number one, do we wipe the top of the sock, or do we wipe the top of the leather sock or the bottom of the leather sock? 3 opinions on this issue. Opinion number 1, it is obligatory to wipe the top and recommended to wipe the bottom. Obligatory to wipe the top, recommended to wipe the bottom. Opinion of Imam Malik and Imam Shafi'i. Opinion number 2, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Ahmad, and the Zahiri madhab, you should only wipe the top. You should only wipe the top. Opinion number 3, some of the Maliki scholars, they said you have to wipe the top and you have to wipe the bottom. Okay? So who can repeat the 3 opinions on wiping over the leather socks? Go ahead.
So the first one is that you wipe over the top, underneath is recommended.
Yeah. And who held that opinion?
So it was Imam Shafi, and it was a Zahiri. No. Imam Shafi.
So far you have a quarter of this candy.
It was Imam Shafi, Imam Malik.
Fantastic, good.
And then the second opinion is that you wipe over the top and the bottom, just the top, and that's the opinion.
Sorry, what is the second opinion?
Just over the top.
Just over the top. And who?
Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad.
No. You said Shafi in the first one.
Imam Ahmad, Imam Abu Hanifa.
Yeah.
And Imam Malik.
No. And the Zahiri madhab. Fantastic. And opinion number 3.
You wipe both of them, and that's some of the Malikis.
You have to wipe both of them. Fantastic. This is yours. Jazakallah khair. Okay, now, that's with leather socks. Okay, and the wiping over the top and bottom, it applies to both the leather and non-leather socks. Now we get to the issue of wiping over just regular socks. And what will we quantify as leather socks? مراد سوف نؤخر الصلاة يعني 5 دقائق إن شاء الله. طيب إن شاء الله. طيب. So wiping over socks. Opinion of Imam Malik, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Abu Hanifa, it is not permissible to wipe on anything besides leather socks. Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmad, Abu Hanifa, you can only wipe over leather socks. Opinion number 2 is that of Imam Ahmad and the 2 students of Imam Abu Hanifa. The 2 students of Imam Abu Hanifa, they said that you can wipe over non-leather socks. They said you can wipe over non-leather socks. What were the conditions that they put that when we talk about non-leather socks? They said that there shouldn't be major holes in it, and it shouldn't be see-through or transparent, and the water should not pour through it. So the difference between seep and pour. Water will seep through any cloth, but water will pour through extremely thin cloth. So if you ever seen like women's leggings, though that's like extremely thin cloth, you put water underneath it, it's as if it's not even there. The water just like pours right through. Whereas you have sports socks, you try to put water through this and it'll seep through, but it's not going to pour through. Right? So that is the condition that they put on that. That is the condition that they put over that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. It is permissible to wipe over non-leather socks. It is permissible to wipe over non-leather socks. The conditions that apply to leather socks will apply to here as well, in the same sense that it has to cover your ankles and it should be something that you can walk in. It should be something that you can walk in, right? Now the issue of the sports socks that don't come up to the ankles. Can you wipe over those? Is anyone wearing those? Under Armour. Those are like covering your ankles though.
Yeah,
They're like the really short ones that literally they just cover the feet.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. Those don't constitute as foot covering. That's like partial foot covering. So you can't make masah on top of those. However, if it covers the ankles, then it is permissible to do so.
So if you wear them, we take it off, wash our feet, and then wear them again?
Exactly. But that's only for the super short ones. Something like this, because your ankles are covered, it's fine. Okay? So now, for how many hours? So for the person that's resident, 24. For the person that's traveling, 72. When does this time start from though? It starts from the first time that you wipe over it. So not from the time that you put your socks on, but from the time that you first wipe over, that is when the 24 hours and the 72 hours start. So for example, at 9 a.m. this morning, you made wudu and you put your socks on, okay? And then at 12 p.m. you used the bathroom and you wiped over your socks after you made wudu. The 24 hours, does it start from 9 a.m. or from 12 p.m.? When does it start? No, it starts from 12 p.m. From the time that you first wipe over the socks, that's when it starts. Okay? So from the first time that you wipe over the socks, that is when the time begins.
For example, 5:30 in the morning, if I'm hungry, and then I pray Dhuhr, and then wipe again.
Yeah, so each time you wipe it, the first time that you wipe it, that's when the 24-hour period starts from. You can wipe as many times as you want in between, but after 24 hours as a resident, you have to wash your feet again. You have to wash your feet again. Okay? Now, a second issue of confusion amongst people when they wipe over socks. You make wudu, you put your socks on, you break your wudu, you wipe over your socks. It gets really hot in the summertime, you decide to take those socks off. Has your wudu now been nullified? Or is your wudu valid? It's still valid. So let's do democracy over here. Who says your wudu is not valid? You have to repeat your wudu. Okay, fantastic. Hands down. Who says your wudu is still valid? You do not need to repeat your wudu. And as always, the majority is correct. So now, in this situation, even though you've broken your wudu and you've wiped over your socks, when you put your socks on, you are already in a state of Taharah. You are already in a state of Taharah. And the removing of a foot covering is not from the nullifiers of wudu. Is not from the nullifiers of wudu. And that's something to think about as well. Why would removing your socks nullify all of your wudu? If anything, it would only nullify the washing of the feet and not the whole thing. But the opinion that is propagated is that removing one's socks will not nullify one's wudu.
So if you go and put your socks back on, can you wipe on top again or no? Or do you have to wash your foot before your next wudu?
So give me a scenario. Well, tell me what happens.
You go outside, you do your wudu, you put your sock on, you go outside, you play soccer, you decide to take your shoes or your socks off because you're playing in your bare feet, right?
Yeah.
And you have wudu. And then it comes time for salah, you put your everything back on, and after that salah, you take your foot off. You break your wudu, you take this off.
When did you break your wudu?
Sorry.
You've already prayed a salah.
No, okay, so putting it back on, can you wipe it after? So you took it off once and you put your sock back on.
But you never broke your wudu?
You didn't break your wudu, but can you wipe on top after that?
Yeah, you can wipe on top of that, it's not a problem. So as long as you're in a state of Taharah, when you put your socks on, it doesn't matter how many times you take it on or off.
Okay.
But you have to be in a state of Taharah while putting them on. If you've broken your wudu and took them on and off, then you have to make a fresh wudu and then put your socks on. And then put your socks on. Okay, we covered the issue of how long. Now we get to the issue of ghusl. We get to the issue of ghusl. Ghusl has one, go ahead. Of wiping over? Yeah, so we only wipe over the top of the socks. Yeah.
My question is, do I need wiping the socks first time I finish the wudu?
So if you make wudu, then you put socks on. Okay? The first time. After you put your socks on, then your wudu is valid for a very, very long time until it breaks. When your wudu breaks and you make wudu again, from that time the 24 hours will begin, inshallah.
So first time I don't need to.
No, because the first time you're washing your feet.
Yeah.
The first time you have to wash your feet. So the socks have to be worn in the state of tahara, in the state of wudu. Okay?
24 hours if you are local, and if you are traveling 72 hours.
72 hours, yes. From the first time that you wipe over your socks. Now we get to the issue of ghusl. Ghusl has one mandatory component to it. And that is that every single part of your body should be washed. Meaning that every single part of your body should have water touch it. If you do this, then you will have achieved the state of ghusl and you're no longer in the state of janaba. You're no longer in the state of janaba. Okay, do we understand that part?
Yes.
The mandatory ghusl, to alleviate yourself from the state of janaba, water has to touch every single part of your body. What is important to understand here, just because you have alleviated the state of janaba from yourself, it does not mean you are in a state of wudu. So do not confuse the two issues. Alleviating the state of janaba does not equate being in a state of wudu. Fantastic. Now, let us discuss what are the things that will require for you to make ghusl. What are the things that are required for you to make ghusl? Number 1, ejaculation. Number 2, intercourse. If a male private part touches a female private part, even if there is no ejaculation, then this necessitates ghusl. Number 3, a non-Muslim accepting Islam. Number 4, after a woman comes off her menstruation or her postpartum bleeding. And number 5, when the person has passed away, meaning that they're dead, then ghusl for the deceased is mandatory, with the exception of the martyr. With the exception of the martyr. So these are the 5 times where ghusl is mandatory. These are the 5 times where ghusl is mandatory. And we mentioned that to alleviate yourself from the state of janaba, all you have to do is cover all of your body with water with the intention of alleviating janaba from yourself. So for example, someone's in a state of janaba, he jumps into a swimming pool, he's covered himself with water, but he did not have the intention to alleviate janaba from himself. Has he alleviated janaba? No, he hasn't, right? He just wet his body. He has to make the intention that all of his body should be touched with water for the state of alleviating janaba. That is when it is done. That is when it is done. Now, let us talk about the sunnah way of performing ghusl. The sunnah way of performing ghusl. Number 1 is you wash your hands. You will wash your hands. Narrations mention 2 or 3 times you wash your hands before making ghusl. Number 2, you wash the private parts thoroughly. You wash the private parts thoroughly, inside and out. You wash it thoroughly. By inside and out, applying both to men and women over here. Okay. Number 3, make wudu as you make wudu for salah. So we discussed how to make wudu. You make wudu as you make wudu for salah. Number 4, you scrub your hair. So in wudu, you just wipe over the head. In ghusl, part of the sunnah is to scrub the head with water. Scrub the head with water. Number 5, you will pour water on your head 3 times. You will pour water on your head 3 times. Number 6, you will pour water all over your body. You will pour water all over your body. There's no number how many times you will do this. You just want to make sure that water has touched every single part of your body. From inside of the armpits till between your toes, to every single part of your body, you want to make sure is washed during ghusl. Number 7 is that if you're making ghusl in a public place by like a lake or a river, and you're standing in mud and you can't wash your feet, then after you come out of the water, you wash your feet separately. You wash your feet separately. However, if you're making wudu, if you're making ghusl in a bathtub, then inside of the bathtub, the final thing that you'll do is wash your feet at that time. Wash your feet at that time. This is the sunnah way of performing ghusl. The differentiation between that which is mandatory and that which is sunnah, with the mandatory way, you cannot perform your salah. It just alleviates the janaba. However, if you perform the ghusl according to the sunnah way, then you can actually now perform your salah. You can actually now perform your salah.
Question.
Yeah.
I've heard from someone like it's sunnah to like sit down and take a shower, but like sometimes in like our bathtubs we can't do that. Like
Why would it be sunnah to sit down and take a shower?
I just heard from someone like is it permissible to like stand while taking a shower?
Yes, it's permissible to stand while taking a shower. I've never seen any proof to indicate that you have to sit down.
Okay.
And the difference of opinion while taking a shower is, are you allowed to take a shower while being completely nude? That's where the difference of opinion lies. That the Prophet ﷺ said that you should be covered when taking a shower.
But
so
if you're like in a bathtub, we usually have
that curtain, exactly, that curtain will suffice.
Okay.
So if you're in a public area, you should at least be wearing some sort of shorts or something like that.
Okay.
That's where the difference of opinion lies.
Okay.
Now the last issue is the issue of tayammum, and inshallah we'll be done with this bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The issue of tayammum. When can a person perform tayammum? A person can perform tayammum when they don't find water, when they do not have enough water, or the usage of water will cause sickness. Do we understand these 3? You have no water whatsoever, you don't have enough water, meaning you have to choose either I can drink water and stay alive, or I can perform wudu for salah. Drink water, stay alive, perform tayammum instead. Or number 3, if I'm to use water on my skin, I would get sick. So either you're out somewhere very, very cold, or you have some sort of skin infection or disease, then in that situation you perform tayammum, and there's nothing wrong with that. The issue with tayammum, what's important to know, is that in the presence of water, your tayammum becomes nullified. So even if you've made tayammum for salah, and while you're praying, all of a sudden your water starts flowing at home, you break your salah and you go and perform wudu. You cannot continue praying in that salah. So tayammum is not considered a rukhsa. A rukhsa means that it replaces something else. Tayammum is what we call mubih, that in the absence of something else we use it, but when the other thing becomes present again, you have to use that water instead. You have to use that water instead. Now, how do you perform tayammum? Before we get into the difference of opinion of what can be used, the simplest thing you need to know is that you will hit the object, whether it is the ground or, as we'll come to, a wall or something else as well. You hit the ground once. If there's dust on it, you can blow it off. You wipe your face and you wipe your hands. And that is all that tayammum is. Very, very simple. Very, very simple. Hit the ground or that object. If there's dust on it, blow the dust off. Wipe the face, wipe the hands. Tayammum has been performed. With this, you can perform salah. You can perform anything that requires wudu up until the water becomes present. Up until the water becomes present. Now, the difference of opinion in tayammum comes on one simple issue. Can tayammum only be made off of sand, dirt, and soil? Or can tayammum be made off of anything at all? Can tayammum be made off anything at all? Opinion number 1, Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, that it is permissible to make tayammum off of anything. It is permissible to make tayammum off of anything. You have a wall, you can use the wall. You have a chair that might gather dust, you can use that chair. Anything like that is permissible. Opinion number 2, Shafi'i, Hanbali, and Zahiri, they said that a person must use some sort of soil, some sort of sand, some sort of dust that is there in its thick layer, and that is what can be used. That is what can be used. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I lean towards the second view. I lean towards the second view. And with that, we conclude our 5 topics. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives us for any shortcomings, and that if you guys have any questions, I can address your questions now as well. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa sallallahu wa sallam wa baraka ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Go ahead.
I have 2 questions.
Yeah.
The first question is, when I'm having a shower, if I take a niyyah for wudu, in my wudu.
So when you're having a shower, you can make the niyyah of wudu, but you have to do it like wudu. So you'll wash the face, you'll wash the beginnings, you'll wash the head, you have to wipe all these places, wipe the feet. If you just go into the water and you make intention but you don't follow the order, then no, it won't count as wudu. Yeah.
Second question, if I make tayammum,
Yes.
and right away I found the water.
Yes. You have to use that water. Tayammum is nullified as soon as the water is present. Okay? Go ahead.
Regarding the tayammum, so is it, there's no time limitation in terms of time?
So the tayammum is valid up until the next salah. Right? So each salah you will make the tayammum again. This is according to one opinion. The other opinion states that your tayammum is valid till you nullify the state of purity. So you pass gas, you urinate, something along those lines. And the second opinion seems stronger. So that each time you nullify your state of purity, you redo tayammum again. Until the water becomes present.
Okay, so it's either that the water becomes available or you
Nullify your state of purity, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for the hand, you have to wipe the elbow or just
For wudu or for tayammum? For tayammum, only the hand. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead.
So for the normal ghusl, you have to perform the wudu before you start the ghusl or after the ghusl? What's the sunnah way?
I just explained that. That's those 7 steps. That is the sunnah way of performing ghusl. Anything else? Go ahead.
Regarding wiping over the socks, let's say I wear the socks when I am not in a state of wudu.
Yes.
And after that, when I'm planning to take wudu, can I wipe over the socks?
No, you have to put the socks on while you're in the state of wudu, and then you can wipe over them. Go ahead.
Regarding this wudu, ghusl.
Yes.
For nose and this for mouth.
Yes.
You have to take water deep in the throat and up in the nose. Because in some books it is
Yes. So the Prophet ﷺ actually told the
different from the normal wudu.
no, it's the same as the normal wudu. The
In
Prophet
normal wudu you don't take up to the throat.
Yeah, even in the ghusl, you shouldn't take it up to the throat. But the Prophet ﷺ said you should exaggerate it, meaning that take it as deep as you can. So it's not a requirement to take it to the throat, but even normal wudu, you should take it as far as you can, except for the person that is fasting. The Prophet ﷺ said, except for the person that is fasting. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Is it allowed that I make tayammum? I ref soccer, and I could be refing anywhere in the field. But my time frame is so short. Yes, there would be water, it's important, but I don't have that time. And if I skip, the game is 90 minutes plus the breaks.
Right.
Then I'll be missing the prayer.
Right.
And usually this is between 6:30 and 10 o'clock, like 2 games in a row.
Right.
Would it be okay, or should I have to bring?
You have to bring water with you. Bring a bottle of water with you and do the absolute basics of wudu. As we mentioned, it's just 4 things. Wash the face once, wash from the beginning of the arm till the elbow, wipe over the head once and back, and wipe the feet up until the ankles, and your wudu is complete. So literally with this much water, you can perform all of wudu. Wallahu ta'ala alam. Khair, we'll conclude with that. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.